I think what we're now seeing is that the key skill for advantage is the ability to adapt to changing and unanticipated environments. So the question is, how can companies create greater adaptiveness, or what we call adaptive advantage? Companies can achieve this by focusing on 5 things. One of them is the interpretation of signals, change signals from the external environment. And what are the patterns of change that they need to react to, the patterns of change that can change their game? The second one is moving away from a paradigm of annual or multi-annual planning cycles carried out in a top-down fashion, more towards something which is more continuous, more experimental, more iterative. So that's a different type of planning, and we call that experimental advantage. The third one is through organizational flexibility. To continuously adapt one's strategy means to continually adapt one's organization, and that means a lot of organizational flexibility, which is difficult to achieve with classical organizations. The fourth one is to leverage the extended ecosystem of a company beyond the boundaries of what it owns and what it directly controls. We've seen many examples of companies being successful in recent years because they've orchestrated an ecosystem very effectively. And the fifth dimension is that companies need to focus more on making sure that their business models are sustainable with respect to ecological sensitivities and social sensitivities. So all of that is really quite a different way of thinking about strategy, and therefore the strategic planning function and the organization as a whole needs to reinvent itself in a number of ways. We're talking about a culture of experimentation and risk-taking. We're talking about a culture of external orientation. We're talking about a culture which tolerates failure and experimentation, a culture of diversity and multiplicity, which is, if you like, the DNA of adaptation. Adaptive advantage ultimately is an organizational agenda. So we're talking about not only achieving the flexibility to reallocate resources with high frequency, we're also talking about a different style of leadership, for example. We're talking about not instruction giving, but we're talking about an adaptive style, which is enabling the organization to experiment and iterate and learn appropriately.